Picture this for a second. You've mapped out the absolute perfect project. Your whole team is on the same page, the budget is fully approved, and your timeline? Flawless. But then you actually start the work, and reality hits. Hard. Without a solid system in place to monitor your progress, catch those inevitable little errors, and steer the ship back on course, that perfectly crafted plan can just fall apart entirely. So what's the missing link here? Well, it's something absolutely vital, often a bit misunderstood, but totally essential. We're talking about administrative control. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to dive right into the mechanics of how successful organizations actually keep their goals on track. We'll unpack the core concepts behind administrative control, see what it looks like in practice, and then explore how these really universal principles pivot to drive success in the educational field through structured evaluation. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. First, what is control? Second, principles and steps. Third, classifications. Fourth, common tools. Fifth, the education pivot. And finally, number 6, evaluation tools. All right, section 1, what exactly is control? And why is it so important? To really ground us, let's look at what Henri Fayol, who was a total pioneer in management theory, had to say about this. He defined control as the oversight to ensure that everything occurs in conformity with established rules and express commands. Now, the point here isn't just to be bossy or micromanage people. It's really about identifying weaknesses and errors so you can correct them and, more importantly, prevent them from happening again. Control is basically the safety net that makes sure your day-to-day work actually aligns with your big picture goals. You know, to truly grasp control, you have to look at its partner in crime, planning. Think of planning like setting your destination on a GPS. Control, on the other hand, is the system that's constantly measuring your car's actual location. It alerts you when you've taken a wrong turn and recalculates the route to get you right back on track. Planning tells you where you want to go. Control ensures you actually arrive there. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the gap. You have your desired performance, that's the plan. And then you have your current actual performance. The space between them, that's called the deviation. Control is the core mechanic that measures that deviation and applies corrective action to bring your current performance back in line with where you actually want to be. Moving right along to section 2, principles and steps of effective control. So for control to actually work in the real world, you need a few core principles in place. First, it has to be suited to the task. I mean, you wouldn't track a CEO the exact same way you track a factory assembly line, right? It also must be completely objective. No personal bias is allowed. Flexibility is a huge one too. If your plan changes, your control system has to adapt right along with it. And it definitely needs to be corrective, focusing on improvement rather than just going on a witch hunt to punish someone. Add in instant reporting, because finding out about a major error 6 months after the fact literally helps no one. It really makes you ask, does your workplace use control to find faults or to guide the future? All right, how do we actually do this? The control process breaks down into 3 mandatory steps. Step 1 is setting standards. These are your objective benchmarks. Step 2 is measuring the actual work being done against those standards. And step 3 is correcting deviations, taking real action when you find a gap. The absolutely crucial thing here is the order. You simply cannot measure performance if you haven't first set clear, understandable standards to measure against. Okay, on to section 3, classifications and types of administrative control. Let's see how this breaks down. Let's map this out on a timeline. First up is pre-action, or preventive control. This is anticipating a problem before it even happens, like double-checking your materials before you start manufacturing. Next is concurrent control, which happens right in the middle of the action. You're monitoring the work as it's being done to catch errors instantly. Finally, there's post-action, or feedback control. This is the debrief after the work is done, comparing the final result against the standard so you can learn for next time. And you know, the absolute best managers, they don't just wait for the end, they lean heavily into that preventive control. Another really crucial way to look at this is by asking, well, who's holding the magnifying glass? We have internal control, which is oversight from within. Managers tracking their own teams or employees self-regulating based on company policy. Then you have external control. This is performed by specialized independent outside agencies or auditors. Understanding who is doing the checking is key to understanding how rigid the whole process is going to be. Which brings us to section 4, common control tools. So what's actually in the toolkit? Managers use things like estimated budgets for financial oversight and statistical data to track output by the numbers. They dive into specific problems using special analytical reports and run internal audits to make sure everything is compliant. But honestly, don't underestimate the simplest tool of the whole bunch:
personal observation. Sometimes just walking the floor, watching the workflow, and chatting with the team gives a leader the most accurate, immediate info they could possibly get.
Let's pivot a bit for Section 5, applying evaluation in the educational field. All right, so we need to reframe our vocabulary just a bit here. What the corporate business world calls control, the educational sphere broadly calls evaluation. Educational evaluation is the continuous, analytical process of assessing programs, tracking positive changes in student behavior, and measuring how effective the whole school system is. Just like in business, the ultimate goal isn't to punish. It's to make smart, developmental decisions for the future. Now, a lot of people think educational evaluation is just handing out report cards to students. Not true. It is vastly broader than that. A truly holistic system assesses the school's organizational plans, how effective teacher training is, and even the strength of the school's ties to the community. It looks at the safety and quality of the facilities, educational supervision, and, of course, the curriculum itself. It's really a whole system check. And that brings us to our final part, Section 6, Educational Evaluation Domains and Tools.
To handle all those diverse areas, educators have a pretty massive toolkit. Yes, naturally they use written and oral tests, but they also use structured interviews, deep dive case studies, and group discussions to really gauge comprehension. They do organized classroom observation, comb through records, hand out questionnaires, use rating scales, and even use sociometric methods to understand classroom social dynamics. The golden rule here is that you have to match the right tool to your specific evaluation goal to get data you can actually trust.
So what does this all mean for us? We've gone from macro management concepts all the way down to the nitty-gritty tools used in schools. But the common thread tying the whole shebang together is the drive for constant improvement. I want to leave you with a question to challenge how you view oversight in your own life. Is your workplace or your school merely monitoring people to punish mistakes, or are you utilizing a proper system of control to genuinely evolve? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.